I don't know. I don't know if I have a fascination with fire. It's just something that I thought was a very interesting part of my series of work on things that are a bit disconcerting, things that give you a sense of unease. And after the View Street Towers fire, I painted a painting based on some of the imagery surrounding that. And afterwards, I did another painting of an old historic building in Victoria as it looked in 1908 when there was a minor fire there. And I just did that as a companion piece to the series of paintings that I did of other apartment buildings and houses. So it was a way of sort of activating them by introducing another element that gave it a sense like something was happening, but still there's something that is giving it a sense of unease. The traditional real estate paintings I did were pieces of real estate that were for sale, so there's a bit of a transition there. Building on Fire is also in a transition as well.
And your paintings about boats and everything, what's the relation?
Yes.
Are they on fire too?
They are. Some of them are on fire. Some of them are just capsizing. There's all sorts of disasters, but that ties into some of the paintings because all the paintings are local. They're all depicting local scenes. So the ships are all local ships that have been sinking. I think a ship on the horizon is a very beautiful thing. It's a very traditional subject matter, but it's not really a tradition to paint a sinking ship. So it's something that is beautiful, but there's also an underlying sense of tragedy, like a little bit of the sublime, that there's an undercurrent of sadness and tragedy and horror underneath this something beautiful. So I really like the idea of introducing something that is beautiful and very tragic at the same time. I think that's a classic theme in art. So it's kind of my spin on it.
So that's why also some of the paintings with the tragic situations are a little bit dark. So your palette is a little bit dark.
Yeah, it's very much like an old master's palette. Traditional colors and really thick paint. So to counteract, to play along with some of the modern subject matter. And it's just a fun way to paint. I mean, all words aside, it's just fun to look at paint that's applied in that way. The subtle colors and the texture of it is just enjoyable to paint, and it's enjoyable to look at. I hope it's enjoyable to look at.
So talking about tragic situations, are you going to keep painting tragic scenes?
Yeah, I think I'm always going to paint tragic scenes because it's such a rich subject matter, and it's very challenging and very rewarding because it's very dangerous, because you can really fall into the trap of being over melodramatic, but it is a theme that keeps popping up in different works, and I enjoy using that imagery and seeing how close I can get to really making people sick and seeing if I can seduce them back with beautiful painting. So, because I don't think they would work if the paintings weren't beautiful. I think they have to, all content aside, they have to be beautiful aesthetic objects. And I think the more aesthetic beauty they have in them, the more you can get away with introducing content that is challenging that. So there should be some tension in there. So I think that's the secret of a good painting, is to have that tension in going in different ways.
So you think every painting, for example, or yours at least, should have a little bit of a dark side?
I think so. I think it was Mark Rothko that said like a painting should have, 10% tragedy in it.
And so you apply that?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think you need to have that in art, but you have to know when to dial it back, because if there's too much, it just comes off. It doesn't translate, and it just turns into a bad painting. It just turns into someone just complaining, or oh, woe is me, my life is so sad, and you see it and you think, oh my God, it's such a bad painting. But if you can somehow introduce more aspects of that painting that seduces them in, so that they don't really know how to feel about it. They feel maybe I shouldn't like this because it's very lowbrow content, or it's really melodramatic and silly. But if you seduce them with the paint, maybe you'll bring them back in. Maybe the perfect reaction to a painting is like you don't really know how you should feel. Maybe you feel guilty for liking it. So I like that.
Have you ever talked to people about your paintings? People have say what they feel when they see something they find it.
Yeah, they'll see a painting of a house and they say, oh, I grew up in that house, or that house looks like something really bad happened inside there. Or they say, I used to live in that house and I hated it, or I used to live in that. And people project their own narrative onto the painting. And then because the houses are painted in a very generic way, they could be anyone's houses, because I remove a lot of the personal objects, because they're all houses that were offered for sale in the real estate ads. So they don't have the bicycles on the lawn that normal houses have. They're depersonalized and anonymous. So people project their own things. Or at least that's what Sean told me to say.
Okay,